Okay, we have all of our data in a pivot table. So now let's go about actually creating the price waterfall chart. So I'm just going to start from scratch right here. And we'll just call that video price waterfall. Okay, the first thing you want to do is head on over to your waterfall pivot chart, or if you are just doing a single waterfall chart, you can just grab the sums directly off your data sheet. But ultimately what you want to do here is just copy and paste your data. Right up here you can use a paste, special values, and number formatting. Extend that out. Once again, you can bring in these values manually. I'm pulling them from the pivot table, so on all of these, they all begin with sum of, because for each of the fields, it was a sum, that was the aggregation that was being applied across that field. So with everything still highlighted like it is, if you hit Control H, that's find and replace, and you can move all of those sum of, and make sure you put a second space there. So it's sum space of space, because you want to make sure that we're going to strip out all of those sum of spaces before each of our field names here. And in the second field down here, the replace with, just, I usually do a delete and backspace just to make sure there are no characters, because I want to replace that sum of space with absolutely nothing, just a blank. So we'll do a replace all. Lets me know that we had 10 replacements here. So we are all set. So the next thing, because when you do throw all of your data into an Excel chart, it generally looks for the data series along your columns. So we basically have to put our data here, which is currently going across the columns. We're going to want to put that into rows. And you can do that just by copying, Control C, and you can use a special paste. There's a transpose option right here. It has these nice two arrows at right angles to each other. What that does is it turns your rows into columns and your columns into rows, which is exactly what you need here. I'll just highlight that. Get the width there. Okay, so one of the first things is these are all in numbers. You want to put these into percentages. So just copy, move over here, and for all of these, we're just going to do a simple formula. It's just going to be the value for that row divided by the list amount. And for the second value here, use F4 to get dollar signs in front of the row and the column, because you want that locked down. Use change it to percentage there, and we'll just extend that formula down. And now all of these numbers are now being expressed in terms of that overall list amount. That list amount, that list price, that is our 100% mark. And now each of these discounts and rebates and prices along the way, they are all expressed in terms of percentages. So that is wonderful. Okay, the next thing is we need to actually think about how we are going to graph this. And the way it works is essentially what you have here. If you actually take a close look at this chart, is I have the full columns here for the list amount, invoice, pocket revenue, and pocket profits. They're full columns because they go all the way from the bottom of the horizontal axis, the 0%, all the way up to whatever value it is. On the other hand, the changes, what you see here in this orange color, these are all suspended in air, essentially. And the way I get them to be suspended in air, just hanging out here up above, is that there's actually this base column underneath each of those. And so like this 1% change that you see in the standard distributor column, there is a 99%, I blanked out, I took out, I marked it as no fills so you wouldn't even see it, but that's what's happening here. Everything in the base column is underneath each of the change columns, and then I just made the base data series invisible so you can't see it. So that's what's causing this effect. So when you're actually going through and doing this yourself, once again, we'll do the base, change, and then full column. So for the full column, let's see, most of these are going to go into change. So well, here, let's just use equal signs here. So full column, we know that's going to be the list. Skip all three of your discounts because those are going to be changes. You want your invoice amount to show up as a full column. Skip your 2 rebates. You want your pocket revenue to show up. Skip your marginal cost. And you want your pocket profits. Those are the 4 items you have here that are going to be full columns. Now for the change, just all the numbers that you skipped over, bring those all in here for the change column. And then for each of the bases, that's essentially going to be whatever the previous number was minus the change is going to be your base. So in this case, for the standard distributor discount, full column minus the change of the standard distributor discount. That'll give you the difference, the base, which is going to make sure that that change amount is elevated to the proper height so that everything stays nice and aligned. And then just do that for each of these. Freight discount is just the previous amount minus your change. Just copy that down right here. For the annual volume rebate, same thing, you go with the full column minus the change. And right here. Okay, now one thing that I do want to make sure that you notice here is that any of these rows that have a full column, they have nothing in the change and the base columns. That's exactly what you want. If there's a change, there should be a base. If there's a full column, there should be no change, there should be no base. So keep that in mind just to ensure you get everything set up correctly here. And then once you're to this point, you can actually just highlight your column labels, all of the labels for your discounts and prices, and you can go straight to Insert, 2D column, and you're going to do a stacked column chart. Okay, let's move this so you can see what's going on here. Okay, let's blow that up just a little bit. Okay, so first of all, this is our 2019 price waterfall. And let's see here on the axis, we want these to show up as percentages. To 0 decimal places. And as far as our bounds, we only need to go up to 100%, or 1, same thing. So I'll just change that to 1. Let's see here. Yes. On all of these series, when you select the data series, over here on the series options to the far right, you can change what the gap width is. That's just the amount of space between each of these fields. Well, for that, let's just put that as 10% because we just need a tiny gap. We don't need a huge gap. So we'll change that like that. Okay. Okay. Something else, you can just delete that legend because it's not necessary. The blue here, which is your actual change, just select that and you can delete that. Oh, no. Excuse me, do not delete it. Change the fill here to no fill so that it keeps it invisible, because you still want it there holding those change amounts suspended up in air like that. I tell you what, let's do some color formatting here. So like on that, let's make that a nice blue color. Let's make this a nice green color. Let's see, for the marginal cost, let's make that red. And then finally for the pocket profits, let's make that black. Okay. Let's see. Okay, one thing that you may notice happening down here with your labels on each of your discounts and rebates is you know, they're just fitting those labels as well as they can, just fitting them to the space available. In some cases, you may want to alter exactly you know, how you're getting that spacing in your labels. Say, for instance, that you just want a single word per line. If there's more than one word you want it to show up on the line below it. Well, you can actually do that just by, you know, if you select your chart here, you can see where all the fields, all the data, all the information is coming from. So all you actually have to do is if you, for instance, here on the list amount, you can see it's all being displayed on a single line. If you put your cursor right before the amount and you select Alt-Enter, here, just to help you see what's going on there. If you hit Alt-Enter, that will move that down to the next line. And when I hit Enter here, that will change it both in the cell here in G6, but you can see it also changed the way the label behaves here within our chart itself. And you can do that with all of these. If you just hit Alt-Enter, it will change all of those to where everything is just being displayed on a single line. Now, one other thing that's happening here is every time I change the spacing, that's increasing the height of each of these columns. And with the Excel chart, the size of it is based on the rows that you have it drawn on. If you increase the height of those rows, that's going to increase the height of your chart. So we'll just finish getting all of these labels in order first, and then we'll worry about adjusting the height of that chart. Annual volume rebate, once again, just Alt-Enter, Alt-Enter, all the way down. And the good news is you only have to do this once, because for every chart from here, in order to get the same effect, we'll just copy and paste these rows over. Okay, and that looks like all of them. Okay, adjust that to where we can actually see what's going on here. Okay, and the very final thing we need to do here is just add some data labels. So just plus on this chart elements button. And there is a data labels option. So I'm just going to select that. And I think those labels are a little small. So I'm going to go through and select each of these. You don't have to do anything with these labels here. on your actual base series, you can just delete those because you know it's not pertinent for what you're doing here. For everything else, let's increase it to a font size of 12. Make it easy to see. And then you know what? For these last two on marginal cost and pocket price, I'm going to change the color of that font to white so that we get plenty of contrast and you can see it. Do note that here on the pocket profits, when you select it the first time, it selects the entire series for those 4 total column values. If you change the font, it will change it on all of them. I'll just Control Z out of that because I think it hurts my eyes on the gray and the blue. So when you select it, just double click just to select a single part, a single element of that data series as opposed to the entire data series. Okay, and with that, we are all done with our price waterfall chart, going about doing it the manual way. Next up, let's take a look at how to use Excel's built-in tool.